Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to our first ever WrestleCast here at Dimp Digital. I am here to take you through what I've been watching, what I haven't been watching, and some opinions of the wrestling scene at the moment. This first show is a bit of a jam-packed one. I've got AEW to talk about, I've got NXT to talk about, New Japan Pro Wrestling to talk about, and also NWA Power to talk about. But we will kick things off with AEW.
We want to set a new standard for all of pro wrestling.
We have the best performers in the world. We're doing something very different.
This is not a reckoning.
This is a revolution. The all-elite era starts
Today. Show for wrestling fans by wrestlers.
12,000 tickets sold in just 4 minutes.
You guys got butterflies?
The pressure is on.
I'm the greatest wrestler, period.
This is what you call a paradigm shift.
AEW taking this game to a whole new level.
He is the best big match performer in all of wrestling. Young Bucks, they're just fearless.
Our goal is to give you the best tag team division in the world. I'm better than you, and you know it.
I'm not your average cookie cutter chick.
They realize what wrestling could be.
The real question is, are they ready for us?
We're about to make history. This is a revolution.
All Elite Wrestling live weekly series Wednesdays starting October 2nd on TNT.
So, AEW have had 14 weeks of television, 1 pay-per-view, and a week break over Christmas. And overall, I've enjoyed it. I have enjoyed this product since it's launched, and I wondered about the TV product and the TV show. Will it be any good? It has been good. The build to the pay-per-view, which was called Full Gear, was excellent. So those first 6 weeks, they had a destination to get to. That was really, really good. After that, they slowly, I felt, started to drop a little bit in quality. And by no means was the show bad, but it just wasn't as good as what had come before. The thing with AEW is that the highs can be really high, but then the lows can be really, really low. But I don't ever find it boring. Even during the period where people would be saying, or maybe I would say, they're having quote-unquote bad shows. I mean, I don't think they've had a bad show at all yet, but people that didn't like them, they weren't bad in my eyes. They just wasn't great. And what I have noticed is that every single match, every single segment they do appears to be under microscopic scrutiny by their own fans, by WWE fans, by WWE NXT fans who they're in a direct sort of rivalry / war with, and also the insider coverage from places like PW Torch and Wrestling Observer. Although I think the insider coverage, it's arguable that that's what they're there for. They're there to really dive in deep to the wrestling shows that are on. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. And it's given me the sense of what I see in the gaming industry. So you get all these big hyped up games that come out, and there is a notion that if the game doesn't get across the board 10 out of 10s, then it becomes an objective failure. And I see the same situation here for AEW. If something is just good, then it doesn't seem like it's good enough, which is total bollocks. Every single show, whether it's wrestling, TV, even films, they go through peaks and troughs. Nothing will consistently be excellent. So the way I've always looked at things is, as long as it's not bad all the time, or bad most of the time, then I think they're doing a good job. They did have some kind of teething problems when they first started, no doubt about that, in terms of audio problems and match length and just a bit of scruffiness. But the shows they've been putting on have all been, at the very least, to an acceptable standard, and at a high, excellent. And I said, that's fine. That's what wrestling can be and what it is a lot of the time. I'm watching WWF from 1999 at the moment, and there's some utter dog shit in there. Utter woeful shite that I've had to sit through. And this was the period when wrestling was at its hottest, maybe. It was entering one of its most popular phases. And for people in my generation, it kind of cemented itself in pop culture. Now, as we grow up, we still use quotes and catchphrases from wrestling, and everyone knows what it is. And there's some toot. Honestly, there is some utter toot to sit through, and that's 1999. God knows what happens when Austin disappears. Whether it gets any better or worse. I'm looking forward to see what that year 2000's like, and if it's as good as I remember. Broadcasting wise, we're going to focus on the UK because that's where I'm from. I don't have much, I don't have any influence over American broadcasting or UK broadcasting, but I'm not in that situation where I can really judge whether it's good or not. But UK wise, when they kicked off, they had a bit of a stinker. It was originally announced that Dynamite, which is their Wednesday weekly show, wouldn't air in the UK until Sunday. And considering it goes live in America on Wednesday night, which is early Thursday morning for us guys here, people rightly called this out that it wasn't good enough. Turned out it was a miscommunication, supposedly, and that shouldn't have been announced. But it was then stated and refined that it would be available on the ITV hub on Thursday evening, so probably less than sort of 12 hours or so, not 12 hours, within 24 hours after it aired. So Thursday night, if you got in from work, you could expect to see it. So that was much better than waiting until Sunday. Then when they did this for the first time, it came about 8 o'clock on the Thursday evening. The first episode had aired in America, and people noticed that they'd cut out an entire match. MJF, I think, was against Brandon Cutler, and all the video packages that had come before matches. Don't know why, but it caused chaos, and rightly so. Seems like now what they're doing is that the first airing is Friday night on ITV4, and the ITV hub seems to just get updated randomly now. Sometimes I've seen it updated on Thursdays, sometimes it's Fridays, sometimes it's later than that. But my advice for most people is just to watch or record the Friday night broadcast and be satisfied with that. Obviously, it'd be great if it aired live because you could record it on Wednesday and watch it Thursday, and then spoilers and whatnot aren't a concern. But you've got to realise this is pro wrestling in the UK going on ITV, one of their sort of sister channels, so it's not going to happen anytime soon, I don't think. If you are a hardcore, you can sign up for AEW Plus, which is available on Fight.tv or the Fight.tv app. It's £4.89 a month, and it gives you access to the live feed of Dynamite. So if you want to stay up till 1 or 2 o'clock and wait for the event to start, you can watch it live on that app and cast it to your telly and watch it there. Or it's available on demand straight after it airs. So Thursday morning, you could get up and watch that if you were not working or if you had time off or whatever it might be. That's what I've currently got going. I've got that AEW Plus. I'm not sure if I'll keep it up, to be honest, but $4.89 a month, to me, I'm not coming across as Mr. fucking Moneybags here, but it's not enough where I notice it disappearing each month. And the bonus of doing that is that it gives you the full show with no breaks at all. So we'll see. Maybe I'll stop it for a while and go back to and I might be fine with just watching it Fridays, but I kind of like having the option of watching it Thursday night as soon as I get in from work, or if I'm off working from home, doing something like that, I can plonk it on whenever. So UK broadcast ones, they've kind of picked it up. I think it could be better, but it could be a lot worse. A bit of refinement wouldn't go amiss, but that's where we are at the moment. I'll talk about some of the finer points of AEW. Start off with some negative points, and then move into perhaps some more positive stuff. We'll see. First of all, the women's division is a bit of a dud. Now, you might be going, "Well, Apps, it's just because you're sexist, you're a pig, chauvinistic." I go, hang on. First of all, I've got loads of women mates. Loads. I'll tell you that much. But secondly, I can't say I've ever really been overly interested in female sports typically. But in MMA, it became as important to me as the men's division since it arrived. So when Strikeforce first introduced it, then the UFC, they made it important, and I'd happily watch that. I wouldn't even query if there was a women's match as a main event and a blokes match wasn't. I was just there looking for a good fight. But I've never been interested in the women's division really from a wrestling side. Again, remember when I started watching, it was early to mid-90s, and then properly lived through that Attitude Era where the women were there for nothing but sex appeal. So that maybe that just tainted my complete perception of what women's wrestling can be. Although I've seen a few bits that the WWE are doing, and that's easily been some of their best stuff. But nowadays, for a new promotion who wants to be diverse and hit all the notes that they can, AEW, there's an expectation for there to be a compelling women's division. It feels like there's no excuse. WWE had the main event WrestleMania last year. I mean, there's things like that that's been happening that means, come on, you guys have got to pick up the slack as well. And they just don't have that. It's not been booked very well, I don't think. The in-ring performances have left a bit to be desired. It feels to me they don't have much of a long-term vision over who's going to lead the division or what's going to happen. Because initially they started off... Rio's the women's champion at the moment. And they started off with Britt Baker kind of being pushed to this up-and-comer and could challenge for the title, like American, she's a dentist, all this good stuff. And you thought maybe she'll get a shot, probably lose, but she'll gain something from this and then go on a bit of a run. They fizzled her out slowly, started fizzling her out, and it looks like now she's starting to turn heel. So that's where that sort of experiment's gone. Weeks after Britt Baker was the big thing in town, the flavour of the month, as I would say, Chris Statlander comes in. She looks impressive. She had some really impressive in-ring performances, a couple of tag losses, if I remember correctly. Goes on to face Shida, who is a great in-ring athlete also. Beats her in a one-on-one match. Then goes on to beat Britt Baker and get a shot at the title. So it felt like they found Britt Baker and was like, right, here's the one we want to get behind. She's going to be the marquee name once we've got to a certain standard. And then it hasn't worked out, so they've just flushed her away, turns her heel, thinking, well, that's going to have to re-energise her. And now Chris Statlander is a new hot thing. But, yeah, they're struggling, no doubt about it there. And fortunately, they don't pile the show full of the women's division. If it was really good, again, wouldn't have a problem with it, but it's not really good, so I appreciate the fact that they either are self-aware or just can't think of any ideas for it. Nowadays, there's usually one match, two tops, utter tops, and then one or two segments, and then that's it. So it's not taking up too much time. They seem to have reined in the match length a little bit, and that's across the board, not just for the women's matches. The matches started out quite long, even for lower card people, and they seem to have tightened that up a little bit and focused a bit more on fitting more people into segments and character development and maybe getting an extra match in there. So there's some good things they've done on that front, but the women's division needs some help in my eyes. I just don't know if there's enough women out there really at a good level. WWE has so many good in-ring performers that are ladies that they may well have nicked 80% of the good stuff, and it's just about trying to find that other 20% and bring them to the forefront. There's some goofy shit in the AEW that I don't like. It really does chap my arse a little bit. We spoke about Chris Statlander a minute ago, who I think has great potential for the women's division. Her name is... She calls herself the Alien. So it's the Alien Chris Statlander, which, I know, sounds stupid. You're already thinking, well, yeah, obviously that's goofy, that's stupid. But here's how you make the Alien work. And this is in a sport where you don't normally have to do things like this. I watch MotoGP, the premier motorcycling championship in the world, and there was a racer called Danny Pedrosa, Spanish. He was touted as the alien, or sometimes an alien, and it didn't literally mean he was a fucking alien. What it meant was that he could do things that appeared to be out of this world, so it was a compliment to his ability. And that's, to me, great. That's a great way of using the alien nickname and applying it to something that's more grounded. But I think Chris Statlander's gimmick, and in her eyes, when she's playing Chris Statlander, that she thinks she's a fucking alien. Or she is a fucking alien. And that's just, no, it's no good. There's a bit in the match with Britt Baker where she touched her nose, looked at Britt Baker, then touched Britt Baker's nose. JR, who's been excellent, scruffy, but he's been excellent because he just calls shit out, said something like, what's going on? What's all this about? What's going on here? And Excalibur, completely straight face, said something along the lines of, well, JR, that's how her kind communicate with one another. JR went, easy now, trying to rein in that level of bullshit. So that stuff needs to be reined in. JR, fortunately, is there to just stop it from going over the edge sometimes, because he won't sit there and sit through complete garbage without saying something. That's what I love about him. But that shit doesn't wash with me. Tone that garbage back just a little bit. Just ground it slightly. The factions that they've developed during these sort of 14 or 15 weeks have been okay. I like a good faction, but I think the key for each faction is to have their own identities, their own motivations. AEW have 3 factions. They have more, but they have 3 factions in particular. They're all heels, and they're all tonally way too similar. You've got the Nightmare Collective, the Dark Order, and then the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny. As I said, they're all heel groups, but they're all dark, they're all mysterious, they're all moody, and they all just blend into one a little bit. They seem like they should be together, and it kind of makes me wonder why, and this is big time fantasy booking, this is what I'll do with it. Form them together as one big faction, go, right, you're all in that part of like Ministry. Let's use the Ministry as an example, because that feels like what they're sort of going for. And then you've got the Elite, who are the baby faces, but the Elite on their own can't take on these 3 factions that have joined to become this powerful force. And the dark or the Ministry type faction are completely dominating AEW. They're causing problems for everyone. So what the Elite have to do, and what the Inner Circle, which is Chris Jericho's heel group, have to kind of make an uneasy alliance, form together, and rid the AEW of this dark and mysterious group. That's what I'll do with it. There's tons of material we could use there. Loads of clashes between... Jericho's obviously still going to be a heel, but he's going to be aiding a babyface group to get rid for the greater good. And I think there's some great things you can do there to get rid of the Dark Order or the Butcher, the Blade, and the Bunny or the Nightmare Collective. They seem too familiar. And there's an idea that I would be happy for them to use. They probably won't. And obviously you'd bring in someone who leads this new combined group who's quite a big star, or someone who's well known on the indie scene, someone who can do that justice. But we'll see what they do with those three. I think they will keep them separate, which will confuse people, I think, if they just pick it up and watch it. I want to talk about PAC quickly, and an example where they have devalued 3 people on their roster through match booking and other bits and pieces. So PAC makes his in-ring debut for AEW against Kenny Omega, who was the top guy. He'd done everything you can need to do in Japan. He lost to Jericho, which is fine. Jericho kind of needed to go on and win that belt, really, to establish AEW and with the North American crowd. But PAC comes in, beats Kenny Omega in a clean win, which shocked a lot of people. The audience was shocked, the hardcores were shocked. And I thought, wow, they're going to heavily invest in PAC. He is just beating one of their top baby faces clean, and that's huge, really. PAC then went on to beat Hangman. He then drew time limit draw with Jon Moxley, who's probably the biggest babyface. Maybe Cody's kind of in that area now, but I'd say Jon Moxley's the most well-known babyface. And so he's riding a decent spell. He has a couple of losses in tag matches, which don't really mean too much, but he was pinned in one of them. But even so, his single record, apart from the draw, is unblemished. Then he takes on Hangman at Full Gear, the pay-per-views. This is a big match. It's on the pay-per-view, for God's sake. And he loses. He lost to Hangman. He just beat him on Dynamite 4 weeks earlier, and then he loses to Hangman Adam Page. So all of his momentum evaporates, because at this stage, Hangman is still struggling to get over a little bit. He's not as popular where he needs to be if he's going to be a top guy. So PAC's been derailed. And then what you've also done is made Kenny Omega look weak as well, because he lost clean to PAC to this man a couple of months ago, again on a pay-per-view. To make matters worse, PAC then takes on Hangman again on Dynamite. I think it's the following week, and then beats Hangman. So you can't even hang your hat on that. Well, Hangman's come out looking good from this. Anything he gained from PAC is then lost in under a week. So all 3 come out looking worse. And that sort of booking has happened in stops and starts with other people where they've not really thought about what... Because they always said wins and losses mattered. They have rankings, which I like. I like the rankings idea. And they reset the record. They don't reset their total record. There's always an AEW overall record. But the 2020 has its kind of new fresh record where I think a majority of the rankings will be decided from. But they said wins and losses mattered. And then in that one example there, 3 men have been pulled down a level. No one's gone up and above because it's too close. It's 50-50 booking. It's shit. Oh dear. And they need to push the elite. Hangman, Kenny Omega, Young Bucks. Cody's been pushed. I think Cody seems immune to all this that I'm talking about, which is good. They needed one guy like that. So the elite need to be pushed as elite competitors. I think they're starting to pivot on that. I can see why perhaps at the start they didn't want to push themselves hard, because people would be saying, oh, look, now they've got booking powers, EVPs all gone to the red. They're just booking themselves into title matches, winning the belt. It's Triple H all over again, all that shit. But I think they went too far the other way to make sure people couldn't accuse them of that. They lost matches they shouldn't have done. They devalued that stable and those people in that stable. And 2019 was not a good year for the elite, I'll tell you that much. Now, it's only been 2 episodes in 2020, and it feels like they might be trying to give the elite a bit more of a winning platform to work off. Cement them as stars. Then once you've done that with your audience who aren't familiar with them too much, because a lot of people might be coming to this clean, use that star power to rub off on the others. And then you're away. It's easy, isn't it? It's that. I can't believe how easy this wrestling thing can be when I say it like that. I don't know what I'm doing. Commentary team I touched on. I love the commentary team. JR, Excalibur and Tony Schiavone. They're not as refined as you might expect or you might want, but they're entertaining. They put over the talent. They do designed to do. Excalibur's like the encyclopedia. He knows all the wrestlers, he knows the moves, he knows their history, and he can fill in those blanks that people will have as an audience when new people arrive, or just examples of notable wins, things like that. He knows his shit. He's got it all either in his head or written down, and that's great. He needs someone in there. JR Jim Ross is basically me. I feel like I'm watching this product vicariously through JR, because he just sits there and queries shit. And if he queries shit and it has no answer for it, then that gets exposed. I think the key with what JR is doing, and you might say, well, they shouldn't really point out negatives in their brand or in the product. But the key is he doesn't act stupid. He doesn't insult the audience by playing along with bullshit. I'm sure he will at some point, but generally he doesn't. And that keeps me engaged. Because I know if I have to do a double take, 90% of the time JR will mention it. I'll be like, yes, exactly what I was thinking. And then maybe Excalibur will have a theory for it, or maybe Tony Schiavone will. And it's like, okay, they've tried to explain that. He's been really good. I know people don't like him because he's old school and all this bullshit, and he stumbles, doesn't know people's names. Oh, yeah, but it's funny, it's entertaining. It's not a flawless sports product. And like I mentioned with that, the Statlander alien shit, he reined that in. Can you imagine just leaving it as Excalibur saying that? Oh, that's how their kind talk to one another, and no one said anything. JR just saying, easy now, just sort of, keep ground this shit is what he's trying to say there. I think he's invaluable at this stage to keep having, and that's a good balance of Excalibur, because you kind of need Excalibur there to lean into the gimmicks, to sell the characters to you, but not go so far that it's just too out there and shite. Tony Schiavone, obviously great. He fills in where he needs to. He doesn't trip over any of the others. He kind of sits back. Him and JR are like old mates calling their favourite sport. And Tony has been... I don't think he's even playing this as a role. I think it's just genuinely how he is. He's sort of an old school announcer who hasn't been watching wrestling probably for years, and now is being exposed to all these new modern techniques. And he's constantly impressed. He's got good theories in ring. His psychology's good. And the three of them, I think, are great. Other things to note from AEW, they are clearly operating on a long-term booking philosophy. So it's a slow burn. And that, I think, is what's turned some people off, because we're so used to having a weekly show where the payoffs are within 2 weeks or the month's pay-per-view. Now, AEW are probably doing a pay-per-view once a quarter or so. So potentially up to 12 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit less, between each pay-per-view, where you will pay off the big storylines. That's a long time to fill. So they blend the long-term booking, they plant seeds weeks before, and you subconsciously forget about it, and then in 3 weeks it comes back. And each main character appears to be getting more than just one conflict with another individual. So an example is MJF's got this feud going on with Cody, which is great. It's enjoyable to watch those two go at it. But 4 weeks ago, when MJF won the Diamond Ring, DDP came in, the legend that he is, and had to present the ring. It's called the Diamond Ring, Diamond Dallas Page, all that good stuff. And MJF was, rude to him as you'd expect, didn't show him any respect. And that's just a seed planted. That must have been 4 or 5 weeks ago. The seed was just planted there, and I thought nothing of it. This past week, that seed then develops and germinates into a conflict between MJF and DDP. And then next week, DDP is going to be in a 6-man tag match, and MJF's going to be on the other side. And I like that. I like that because they've got so much time to fill potentially between the pay-per-views, between the MJF and Cody match, which surely is happening at Revolution, which is their next pay-per-view in February. They can afford to do things like this. Cody, for example, he focuses on MJF, but now he's got Arn Anderson in as like his head coach, and he's now dealing with that for a few weeks. He had a little bit of a sidetrack with the Butcher and the Blade and the Bunny, and it works. The long-term style I'm enjoying. I understand where people might think, what's going on, it's not moving quick enough, but it makes, if the payoffs are done well, it'll increase the percentage of their effect, I think, and that's great. And they've shown some really good flexibility in the booking. Dark Order, for example, And this might be a bit premature to say this, but the Dark Order essentially ended the year beating up the Elite. Okay, so all the top stars were beaten up by the Dark Order, and no one was really sold in the Dark Order. They've not really shown. I think they've won fucking more than 2 matches since this thing started, so they're not they're not established. And people went, "That's bollocks." They hated it. People hated the end show for Dynamite of the year. They really couldn't take it. And already in 2020, again, only 2 shows in, they might revert back. They appear to be aligning the Dark Order with the likes of like Christopher Daniels, trying to recruit him into there. And he was a little bit further down the rung. Then the Young Bucks kind of ran in, so the Young Bucks maybe will feud with the Dark Order, and they, God hope they beat them. Otherwise, this completely will be poor, but they will beat them because they should be on a higher rung, and it's just not letting them get into those main event segments. And maybe they've heard the criticisms and said, actually, let's rein this lot in. It's not working. Let's have them focus on people just a tad off what we was planning to do, and it can still work. They can still tell the story, just that it hasn't got to be, main event stuff with Moxley and Jericho involved. Absolutely keep them away from there. Another area they've shown flexibility or leaned into certain mistakes is Christopher Daniels went for a moonsault against Pentagon Jr. and he slipped off the rope and fucking landed hard on the stage. It looked like a botch. Now, the great thing about this piece is if it was a botch, poor old Daniels, that must have hurt. But if all of this is intentional, then it's just genius. Because since that day, Christopher Daniels has been sitting there questioning himself, saying, do I still have it? I'm what, nearly 50? Can I still do the moves I used to do? Is it time to hang it up? And he's having second thoughts. And that, to me, if it was a genuine botch, that shows some great flexibility in the booking, because they've seen an opportunity to focus on a story. And I'll tell you what, if it was all planned from the outset, they've got me. I've gone along with it hook, line and sinker, so it's worked. So I like that they appear, even if they're not, they appear to be more fluid than what I had seen previously. And the final thing I like about the overall style is the production. I like the way the arena's set up. It feels like Nitro, which for some people might go, oh no, not bloody Nitro again. But trust me, in a good way, it feels like Nitro. It feels legit. It feels high production. It feels like a world-class operation, which is what you want. And I love the way they lean into the wrestling history. They mention the Four Horsemen. They mention old matches, NWA stuff. And it's just, I don't know. Like when I watch some of the WWE stuff very occasionally, and you just don't get any of that. It's all about who's there today. And I understand you've got to push who's there today because that's who people are watching. But sometimes they don't even acknowledge stuff. And I feel like the callbacks that they have in AEW just make it feel much more compelling. They understand the history. They understand that people may be coming back after not watching for a while, and by calling back certain situations, you'll get them back. So keep doing that. Keep using the history of wrestling to tell stories, to make references, to compare yourselves to, because I think it's great. Some of the wrestlers that have been doing really well. MJF, one of the best talking heels going today? Must be. Jericho's up there. MJF is an arsehole, but he's a heel. He's a great, great, great heel. I think he's 23. And what I also like about MJF is a lot of people don't like this. They're like, his in-ring's a bit average. It's like, yeah, he's a heel. He's a baddie. He doesn't need to wow the crowd. If he sits there and puts Cody in a fucking chinlock for 3 minutes at the pay-per-view and bores the crowd a little bit, yeah, it'll be boring. But if he's doing it on purpose to rile the crowd up, that's fine. Slow it down. Don't have to be flipping and jumping around everywhere. Not everyone can. Not everyone needs to. And MJF, on promos alone, is fantastic. And I'm really interested to see how he grows, because it's scary how good he is now on the mic. It really is. John Moxley, he's a fucking bruiser. I fucking love him. He just does not give a shit. Runs through people, brawls. I like that brawling style of his. I really do. I enjoy that. That's probably from watching Austin so much. Austin used to just punch and kick. Maybe throw in the odd suplex, but chuck people into the ropes, punch, kick, throw them, sling them around and beat them up. Moxley had a fantastic match against Darby Allin in 2019 on Dynamite. That was my favourite match. It might have been my favourite match of the year. I fucking love that match because it just felt like a real physical contest, a real battle. And I'm loving Moxley. He's good on the mic and he does feel free from the scripts and the characters he was playing in WWE, which was great. Chris Jericho, got to be the GOAT, isn't he, at this time? 3 decades he's been going, and he's still... This might be the best Chris Jericho in terms of character we've ever had. And he's just consistently good. Can't complain about him. Such great segments. He can still cut it in the ring. Yeah, he looks like a piece of shit sometimes. He's got a bit of a gut, but again, he's a heel. I don't think there's a problem with heels looking bad, to be honest. If a babyface looked like complete shit, you might be like, But a heel, it's like, well, that's part of his way, isn't it? That's why he's not liked. But he's so entertaining. And they can flip him at some point to babyface, I think. Sammy Guevara, who's part of the Inner Circle, he is an excellent heel also. Like, not necessarily on the mic yet. He's not on MJF level, but his facial expressions, his in-ring style, he can do some really cool shit in the ring. But he makes a point of putting at least one spot in where he'll maybe go to the top rope. He might be doing a shooting star press, and he'll just jump down and go into a headlock. Like I was saying earlier with MJF, get the crowd to hate you, and he works so well. He's hilarious to watch. If you just watch him in the background of when Jericho's doing a segment, he's brilliant. Can't complain about him. Cody has been fantastic, babyface wise. He's like the white meat babyface. His promos have been excellent. He's been good in the ring, and yeah, what a guy. The sickener for him, the sickener for me, is I want to see Cody win that belt, but they put a stipulation at Full Gear saying that if Cody lost to Jericho, which he did because MJF threw the towel in, and that's when he properly turned, he couldn't challenge for the title ever again. And they've said, we're not going to try and get out of that stipulation. They've got to one day. If they can hold it off for a long time, like we're talking years, the payoff to that would be excellent. And I think by that time, people will forgive them for finding a way out of that. If they do it next week, it won't work. Or this year even, I think that'll be way too soon. But ultimately, if they stick to it all the way through, I mean, what a message that sends out. Other sort of upcoming stars are like Darby Allin. He is smooth as silk in the ring. He's quite small, but his style is brilliant to watch. He's an interesting character. Jungle Boy has potential. Luchasaurus has been looking good. So look, there's some great stuff in there. I've been really enjoying going through the journey with AEW. The storylines have been engaging. It's not crash bang wallop. Okay, now we're on to the next arc. They can do little 4-week storylines in amongst a wider story arc. So like I mentioned, when there's multiple strands and conflicts for each wrestler, they can do that. There could be a little 2-week program. This DDP and MJF could end next week, and that's the last we see of that. That's something that bubbled up 4 or 5 weeks ago and will then pay off in 2 weeks. So it's great. I think they're doing a good job. There's certainly stuff that can be improved upon. I've mentioned some of the stuff here today, but overall I want you to know that my opinion, I've been enjoying AEW and I've not been bored, good, bad or indifferent. I've been entertained throughout that, and I think the last show they've done, this week's one, if they stick to that format, I think that will serve them well. Keep doing the video packages, keep recapping for people that haven't maybe watched it, and don't put too much stuff on your shoulder content, on Being the Elite YouTube channel, on the AEW Dark Show. Like, if you are going to put stuff on there, have commentators recap, have a video recap. It takes 30 seconds, and it just keeps everyone in the loop, and those that only want to watch Dynamite, which would be the majority of your audience, will stay in the loop and not be confused. But keep up the good work. I'm enjoying AEW, and let's see where they go in 2020.
There are moments in life when everything changes in the blink of an eye. Tonight, don't blink. Tonight, we will show you that we are not just the future, we are the now. There is something special in the atmosphere here. This is passion. This is pride. Groundbreaking, defiant, undisputed, and damn sure unapologetic. We are not your kind. We are here. We are live. NXT. Let us show you.
So now we move on to NXT. WWE NXT. This is the third brand of WWE. So you've got obviously Raw, you've got SmackDown, and you've got NXT. Now they, in America, go directly against AEW. So there's a big thing, it's like a Wednesday night war going on over the pond where the ratings of AEW and the ratings of NXT are compared to each other every single week. I think now AEW's winning. They started off winning and then they slowly but surely their lead diluted. And then NXT won a few weeks, then they drew, then AEW kind of got it back. And this latest week, AEW done a really good number and NXT done an okay number. So it feels like it's gone back, but NXT, I think ratings-wise, will do better next week because I've got a feeling that, although I really enjoyed AEW's latest episode, I think some people didn't. And so they might go back to NXT next week. But we'll see. I mean, for me, the only reason I bother about the Wednesday Night Wars is I just don't want, in particular, AEW to go out of business because of this. I just want the wrestling to be good on both shows, where I could actually watch both shows and be as invested as I am in both equally. The only reason I'd want AEW to stay around is so that WWE has some competition, because competition can breed, excellent performances between different companies and different brands. So you can pull each other up in a competition because you're fighting against one another. When you're running unopposed, go through the motions, can't you? You just sail through life and not worry about it. So there's something to be said about the Wednesday Night Wars being something that's positive. The only negative I kind of see coming out of this is that I don't want AEW to keep looking over at what NXT are doing or looking at the ratings if they start wobbling again, which undoubtedly will. I can see this going up and down all throughout the year. They start wobbling again, is then trying to change their philosophy and hot shot things and go again. Just do your show. AEW will get enough viewers on TNT for it to be considered a success. When you compare it against NXT, if NXT is smashing them, everyone will say, oh, look, that proves it's garbage. It doesn't mean that at all, but that's the narrative that will be drawn. Everything seems to be boiling down to these ratings, which I think is where the negative of a war like this comes into play, because you boil things down to just looking at that number and saying, that show's better than that show's crap. And it goes into what I was saying earlier about something either being the best or shit. It's not like that at all. The other show actually is probably still very good, just that more people watched NXT or AEW that week. So that's where I kind of see the negative side of things. And I don't think it'll affect NXT at all, because they're kind of just rolling the dice here with NXT. Like, let's chuck it on, USA Network. AEW is a new promotion, a lot of money being put on it. TNT haven't had wrestling on for 20 years. So you need to keep them happy. And as long as TNT or whoever makes those decisions aren't looking at the ratings going, you've been beaten by NXT. As long as they're happy with the numbers they're getting, everything will be fine. But I just don't want them to... I don't want either company really to be looking at what the other one's doing and try and change things. Although I feel like NXT need to change more than what AEW does, because I have really struggled to watch NXT. When it first went onto their 2-hour live format, which I think was September, it went maybe 2 weeks before AEW started. I think I watched 5, maybe 6 episodes of it. And I was like, okay, I'm not really into this, but I can see the appeal. let's give it some time. I thought I'll give it some time, and because it takes a while for you to get your head around who people are, what the motives, all that good stuff. And then I saw that they were invading SmackDown and Raw. So that Adam Cole had appeared on SmackDown. Rhea Ripley and Co had gone on to Raw. And I saw that the baby faces and the heels were fighting alongside each other, even though they fucking hated each other in NXT. And I was like, oh god, here we go. Here we go. This is what they've done to NXT since they've gone 2 hours. They're going to make it form part of this greater universe, and its protected status of not being meddled with is going to go down the shit pan. So I tuned out completely. I assumed that the lead up to Survivor Series, they were going, right, it's brand versus brand versus brand. First time ever NXT is going to be there. And I thought, well, they're going to bury NXT and focus on perhaps putting SmackDown over, because SmackDown's just gone onto the Fox network in America, and that's a huge deal, loads of money. They want that to be the best brand, the premier. They didn't. They did, to their credit, they did not bury NXT. NXT won the night, quote unquote. They had the best record. So I thought, okay, it looks like you're trying to put them over, or you're going to treat them as a legitimate third brand, not development. Now, there's still questions over that. It still feels, and I think is treated as a development brand, which hurts it in my view. But at least in the Survivor Series, they were put over as a legitimate force, third brand. But it's just felt like a bit of a chore to watch sometimes. The in-ring stuff, let's start on the good stuff. The in-ring stuff of NXT is almost an entire level above AEW. It's far more consistent. They have a plethora of talent that can be excellent in the ring, and they're not even at the top of the card. So if you only are interested in in-ring stuff, well, no doubt NXT over AEW. Don't get me wrong, AEW has some great matches, but it's a bit up and down. People are green. They're not as refined. So if you enjoy refined in-ring stuff, NXT and AEW is your choice, you take NXT all day long. No qualms of that. But I'm just not invested in anyone. I couldn't give a bollock. I could not give a bollock who wins or loses in these matches. I like people in Undisputed Era who are heels. And what I've noticed is that I am backing the heels in most matches. And that is a clear sign. This is what happens when I become disinterested or not invested in a wrestling show. I root for the bad guys, to make it simple. And that, to me, says that I'm clearly not enjoying it. I just want to see the bad guys win to upset the crowd, which is not a good place to be. And I think what I'm going to have to do is I can sit there and watch Dynamite 2 hours, hour and a half, whatever the time is, straight. I don't want to get up. I might get up and have a drink, one break. I think with NXT, I'll get about half hour in, and I think I can feel my mind wandering. I see my phone, I think, just have a little look at WhatsApp. And stuff like that starts creeping into my mind. So I think what I'm going to have to do is watch it a segment at a time, take a break, come back, and just, if it takes a couple of days, do it that way. And it keeps me a bit fresh. But yeah, I'm disappointed that I'm not enjoying this as much as I thought I would. They need to get out of that Full Sail arena. Seriously. Look, they do a great job of making Full Sail not look like a warehouse in most instances. I mean, it holds about, I don't know how many it holds, 400 people? Maybe I'll look it up in a second. But what I'm saying is they come back to the same setting every time, which is Full Sail and Full Sail University. And they said, good job at dressing it up and making it not look completely terrible. But when you compare it, you flick from AEW to Dynamite. I said the in-ring stuff is in a different league. The production in that sense, just from a visual standpoint, is in an entirely different league as well. And that I think plays into the whole, minor league. Doesn't invest me in the product. If your closest rivals look a league above you, just in terms of how they visually present the show, then I think you're in trouble. Well, you're not in trouble, that's a stupid thing to say, but for someone like me, that goes a long way of making NXT feel important. Just said, they've done the fucking groundwork. They've put them over as a legitimate third brand. But then you go back and watch the show and it looks minor league. Don't get me wrong, the direction is good. All this sound that people are going to go, oh, it was much better. But it looks like garbage. I don't even like the look of Raw or SmackDown. But it feels world class. It feels like this is a showcase of some of the best wrestlers in the world. NXT looks, and therefore in my mind makes it feel like an indie show. In the same venue, with the same fans who eat most things up every week. You see the same fucking fans sitting there. Oh, and for something that's, again, we'll talk about fucking NWA in a minute, but they're not promoting themselves as what NXT thinks they are. And yeah, I've been a bit disappointed and I'm struggling to keep up with it. Now, what I've committed in my brain to do, this is mainly because of Ronnie, the old brain, is we've seen Survivor Series and the Takeover before that. I've started watching every episode since then. I want to do a full run from November up until their next Takeover show, which I believe is in Portland. So I can have the payoffs. I think it's unfair to just sort of walk away. It's not unfair at all. It's my time. I can do what I want. But I want to see if there's payoffs there down the line that make you go, okay, right, that time I invested has been worthwhile. So I'm going to stay around till the Portland Takeover, watch every show, and then after that, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. That could be a pivot point for me, because there is the theme of this particular WrestleCast is there is a lot of good wrestling out there at the moment. You can't watch it all. Well, you can, but if you try and run a fucking weekly podcast, play games, fucking there ain't time for it all. So I have to pick and choose. And at the moment, NXT, a little bit on the cutting block. And look, I want them to succeed. Yes, it's part of WWE, but it's, for all intents and purposes, Triple H is booking it, Helmsley, Paul of X, whatever you call him. So it's not got Vince booking it, and you can feel that. It feels less contrived and whatnot, but the worry is that it's still going to be seen as a development brand for WWE, and when people like Keith Lee, for example, who might start getting over, they're getting, they're on a bit of a momentum swing, is that Vince nicks them. They can always boost the ratings of NXT. If they want to win against AEW every week, they can just put main roster people on. They can. And if they moved out of Full Sail and went touring, that would be a huge plus. The trouble with doing that is, the trouble with going touring and getting out of Full Sail, I think this is something that people miss. What did I watch? What was it called? It was a documentary on Mauro Ranallo, who's the lead sort of commentator or announcer, whatever you want to call them, at NXT. Nigel McGuinness and Beth Phoenix. It's a 3-person booth. Beth Phoenix is awful, by the way. She fucking annoys me. I think it's her that makes me not want the babyface to win, because she's fucking biased towards them. There's just something about, I just don't like the way she sort of squawks and always cries almost when the babyfaces lose. I'm like, yeah, good. Have that. Don't shove them down my throat. Anyway, side point. So watching a documentary on Mauro Ranallo. It was a Showtime documentary. It's on YouTube. You can find it. I think it's called The Bipolar of Rock and Roller. So Mauro Ranallo suffers from bipolar disorder, and he came into the WWE initially, I believe, I didn't watch it at the time, on either Raw or SmackDown as a main brand commentator. And in the end, it got to the stage where he couldn't cope for various reasons. There's some backstage stuff as well. But one of the things that it goes into this in the documentary that he says was around, the travel, having to tour, having to move, having to not be at home, not have a base of operations. 4 days a week minimum, you're probably on the road. And one of the appeals of NXT has to be, not just for someone like Mauro Ranallo, where it's cited in that documentary, but a lot of the wrestlers as well, is that for 80% of the year, they know they're just going to be doing a few house shows per week, maybe. Not everyone will do them, but they will be based out of Full Sail. They can really have a stable balance between home and work life. That has to be a plus point. So the worry is, if they do start going on tour, is that people decide, actually, we earn less because we're in NXT, and it doesn't sound like they've had their pay rises yet, but one of the advantages is that we've got a good thing going here in terms of work-life balance, perhaps, compared to the main roster. Start touring, that advantage disappears almost immediately because of the travel. And that's maybe one reason why they wouldn't want to tour, not just also that it'll probably be more expensive. But they could get bigger crowds in. They don't have to go massive, like 15,000 strong. AEW do the odd 10,000 one, but from what I've seen, they're doing about 4,000 or 5,000. And NXT is popular enough to do that. I'm pretty sure of that. I think that would help build their markets in America and stabilise it. I think there's advantages to it, but again, if you start having disgruntled talent or talent who are not happy, or who are then like, well, this is just like being on the main roster, the reason why we want to stay in NXT is because it's different, it offers us a better balance, then you may have a problem there. So there's probably a lot that goes into it, the reason why, but if you're watching it on telly like me, you look at those two and you go, that looks like trash. Anyway, let's hope NXT does invest me into it more. And I'm sure there's people out there that are going, you're fucking crazy, it's the best. You know, you're entitled to that opinion. But I'm just telling you, I haven't enjoyed it as much as I was hoping to, because I was told it was the second coming, and it ain't.
It was like going 30 years back in time with the best wrestlers of today. It was awesome.
Yeah, we had a blast.
So many surprises.
With stars like Jade Storm, Nick Aldis, Allison Kay, the list goes on and on, the Wild Cards, Rock and Roll Express, everybody, championship, Jim Cornette and Joe Gelly on commentary. Hey, baby, the NWA in Atlanta, Georgia, it's still real to me. Damn it. I knew he was going to hit the frame.
NWA Power. Who would have thunk it? Who would have sat there and thought, well, NWA is going to come back. It will have a YouTube hourly show called NWA Power with 3 R's, which I believe is down to trademarks of power being used as a wrestling sort of power hour type thing, but whatever. And then not only will it be airing every week on YouTube, be an hour long, it will be in a studio. It will promote old school wrestling, not just in its look, but also in its in-ring style and setup and promos. And do you know what the most shocking thing will be? It's actually going to be pretty good. I'm really enjoying NWA. I am. Once a week on YouTube, Monday night, I think, or Tuesday night it might drop. I can't remember. I look forward to it. I look forward to waking up Wednesday and having that there. Just an hour or so to watch some good wrestling. And the wrestling isn't modern wrestling. They completely and utterly have scaled back, stripped back the in-ring style so that there aren't flips. Well, there are flips, but there's not like... you watch the Young Bucks match, which are entertaining, but in terms of making much sense, sometimes they don't. And people get tired of that. Old school fans like it when a body slam meant something. And NWA Power gives that impression. When I first started watching it, I thought, I ain't going to stick up with this too much, because the production of it was shit. And I've just sat there and slagged off NXT for the way that Full Sail looks and how it feels minor league. But the reason it feels minor league is because it's up in a war against AEW. NWA is just doing its own thing. So they're afforded the space to just say, okay, we're going to develop this look, this feel. We're going to intentionally make it look and feel old school and feel like an old wrestling studio show. So there's like 2 camera angles in the whole match. There's a hard cam and there may be one outside, maybe another one, I don't know. And all you see is the bleachers of about 400 people. Not even that. It can't be 400 people. However many people in this studio, and that's it. There's no entrance music unless they're on a pay-per-view. So they kind of use the entrance music to define that this is a special occasion, which is good because the amount of good matches that go on to normal television and then pay-per-view doesn't feel special. NWA, no, they make sure that you know this is a pay-per-view, even though it's in the same studio. And yeah, I'm just so surprised that I'm enjoying this. And I'll tell you what it is. It's because they're building some really good stories. I think there's one episode where in an hour there was 16 minutes of wrestling. And again, you're probably sitting there thinking, what? It's a fucking wrestling show. I'm like, yeah, it is, but you know, to be invested in what these guys are going to do in the ring, who's going to win and lose, you got to hear the fuckers talk. And that's, I think, where NXT, for me, is losing me a little bit, is that they don't give people enough time. Their personalities don't show through for whatever reason. AEW have a good balance of matches and promos and segments at the moment. I hope they keep to that. But NWA, a lot more promos, a lot less in-ring stuff. But they build up some really good stories. And everyone they put on the mic is great. Nick Aldis, the current world's champion, as they call it, they're the true wrestling world champion, the NWA heavyweight champion. They build that belt and make it fucking mean something for once. I look at NXT's belt and I think that's the third best belt in the WWE universe. It doesn't feel like the world's championship, because in their world there are two other belts on that same rung. NWA have the advantage of they've got one world champion. AEW, one world champion. So NWA do a great job of building up the historic meaning of that belt. And Nick Aldis is their current champion. He's from England, just like Pac. I always try and sneak in some good chat for the English boys, or the ones that are over this side of the pond. But he's good. He started off as a bit of a tweener. He was kind of a baby face, but not a typical baby face. He had a little bit of a nasty side to him. He wanted to get business done. And they've turned him full heel now. And fuck me, is he good? Is he fucking good as a heel? And then you've got this chap. So that's Nick Aldis, just one person. And honestly, anyone they put on the mic is really good. They can talk. They have the best back and forth of the crowd. Because the crowd's really intimate and close, you can hear them shouting out. And because these are trained professional wrestlers who know how to think on their feet, which is a skill which was deteriorating at one point because of all the scripting that was going on, they can react to the crowd and add to their promos. They do such a good job of doing that, and that again, that's a dynamic that others don't have. NXT could have that because they've got quite a small crowd and the same people turn up each time, but AEW can't really do that because you've got to have a chant going for them to react. But one person on NWA Power can shout one thing out, and then Nick Aldis can shut it down. Shut up, fat ass. Or something like, it could be something as simple as that. But it just shows that they're interacting with the crowd and they can think on their feet. Anyway, anyone they put on the mic's great, but never even heard of this bloke before putting on NWA Power for the first time. A chap named Tim Storm. Okay, he is amazing on the mic. Babyface, old school. Always mentions Mama Storm. Somehow his mum's still alive. This guy's 54 years old. I think his mum's 95. And she gets mentioned. The crowd love it. It's brilliant to see. He's just fantastic. Like, seeing him on the mic, that you just get drawn into him. The guy's 54 years old. He's never going to get on NXT. He's never going to get on AEW. He's never going to get on WWE. But what NWA have done is they've opened the door for young talent as well. A guy like Ricky Starks, who looks quite good. He's got a decent look. With a smarmy look. I think he'll make a good heel one day. He's good on the mic. But then you've got these older, more experienced, and I'm sorry to say this, previously irrelevant names, I feel like Tim Storm. They come to the NWA. He's been there about 4 or 5 years, And with now this weekly show, you really get to know them and you're invested in their stories. I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm saying this because the you look at this and you could be turned off straight away by the way it looks, and I'm not going to begrudge anyone that does that. But the promos, the in-ring stuff is good because it's scaled back and it's not over the top. It all makes sense. There's some stupid shit on it. There is. Like, even just with 1 hour a week, they still manage to fall in that trap of having stupid shit in it. Like, I don't like this whole question mark fella, but he's cheered like you wouldn't hear, so you just go with it, I guess. And yeah, the surprise package is NWA Power. It's really good. Really, really good. The things that I would have been concerned about just slightly, they've got a pay-per-view coming up the end of January, and they had one in mid-December. That feels way too soon for me for it to be a pay-per-view. 6 weeks or so, I think it might be. It just feels a little bit too soon. Just a tad. It's not the end of the world, but again, if I'm going to watch this, then I'm going to have to pay out for it. So the less there are, the better. Yeah, December the 14th was Into the Fire, their first pay-per-view. And then January the 24th. So that feels a little bit too soon to me. We'll see. Maybe they won't have any more for a few months. But with 1 hour a week, they can certainly stretch things out if they need to be. So I wouldn't be overly annoyed if they were to do that. But NWA, great stuff. They had Marty Scurll appear at their pay-per-view Into the Fire. Not seen him since. So I don't know what's going on there. I've not seen him since. I don't know if that was just a one-off appearance. I thought he was going to build towards Hard Times, which is the January the 24th pay-per-view, and he'd be taking on Nick Aldis for the title, but no, they're not. Anyway, great NWA Power. It's such a fun show. Give it a chance. If you're interested in anything I've said there, if you only like the modern stuff, then not going to happen. But if you've got a bit of a craving for some old school stuff or something just different, then NWA Power on YouTube is an excellent choice.
The pinnacle of strength. On January 4th, 2020, IWGP Intercontinental and Heavyweight Championship matches see 4 men start a historic double gold dash, while Hiromu Takahashi and Will Ospreay push the limits of human athleticism in a bid to steal the show of shows, the birthplace of legend.
Hiromu is back!
On January 5th, as Jushin Thunder Liger ends his legacy when he wrestles for the final time. Chris Jericho and Hiroshi Tanahashi will battle to extend their own.
Wait a minute, Tanahashi! Tanahashi!
Chris Jericho is the greatest of all time.
The Painmaker versus the Ace. It's going to be a classic match. It's also going to be your last match, Tana.
And in a historic main event, one will lead New Japan Pro Wrestling to new untold heights. Tetsuya Naito, Jay White, Kota Ibushi, and Kazuchika Okada. Who will leave with all the gold and all the power? In a 2-night spectacular, it's Wrestle Kingdom 14. Don't miss January 4th and 5th at the Tokyo Dome. For more info, head over to www.njpw1972.com.
Final promotion we're going to talk about on this inaugural edition of the WrestleCast, and it is, of course, New Japan Pro Wrestling. History of New Japan. Not a lot. I remember about 10 years ago, my brother was working with a chap. I think his name was Brycey. He liked wrestling. And he gave us a video of some New Japan Pro Wrestling matches. And we didn't have any English commentary back then. I was a bit like, eh. But I remember watching the matches and thinking, these are great, these matches. They really are. They're worth watching just for the in-ring stuff almost. But I never picked it up. It wasn't something that appeared to be easily available to someone in the UK. what New Japan have done, they've created a streaming service called New Japan Pro Wrestling World. You can subscribe to that for £7.50 a month or something like that, UK pounds. It's not a lot again, but if you keep fucking adding these things, they will add up with Netflix and all sorts of other bollocks. So just be a bit careful. I've been a bit careless lately. And that gives you access to all their events that they're running, basically. You can stream them, you can then cast them to your TV if you've got a Chromecast or some other device that can do that. And I thought, fuck it, it's 2020, it's a new decade, a new year. I'm going to take the plunge, sign up for 1 month and watch Wrestle Kingdom 14, which is their big event in the Tokyo Dome. They do it every year. And this is basically their WrestleMania. So I thought it was a good chance just to jump in and watch it. And I had no idea who hardly any of the people were. The only people I knew who existed were Jay White, never seen him wrestle, but heard of him because I've been playing Total Extreme Wrestling, and he's one of the people I wanted to try and pick up for my promotion there. Will Ospreay, another one I'd heard of but not seen, UK guy, so always going to back him. John Moxley, obviously, because I've been watching AEW. Chris Jericho, again, not just from AEW, but, you know, general wrestling as well. Zack Sabre Jr., again from Total Extreme Wrestling. And then I had heard of Okada, and I'd seen his match with Kenny Omega at Dominion, that fucking 2 out of 3 falls one. So I'd seen his matches. I know he's world class in ring. So I didn't really have a clue about what was going on. But I put on the broadcast. Didn't watch it live because it was on at, well, actually it was on at a reasonable time. I think it started about 7 in the morning, so actually it was watchable. But by the time I'd done everything, I was too late. I put it on, and like the first, I think, night, well, it's a split over 2 nights. So here's one problem I'm going to call out straight away. The first thing I'll call out straight away is this was too long. Too long for me anyway. Like the 2 nights of wrestling back to back. They were both like 4 hours long, 5 hours long. I was like, good lord. So that was a bit of a stinker. I did watch it all in parts. Didn't watch it from start to finish on both, and that made it easier. But come on, let's just sort that out. Anyway, the first night, the opening 7 matches are either 8-man tag matches or just tag team matches. In my opinion, probably get fucking crucified for this. Tag matches aren't very good in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I didn't enjoy one of these matches, unfortunately. It could have been because I wasn't, invested, but they were all pretty short. Not really a lot going on. Like all the 8-man tags end in the same way. It was just eventually it would fall into a melee, and then all of a sudden 3 members would be held outside the ring. Someone would put a finisher on and win the match, and it just they probably just wanted to get everyone on the card, and they probably succeeded in doing that. But I didn't enjoy that too much, to be quite honest. Jushin Thunder Liger, this was his retirement weekend, I should say, because he had 2 matches, was defeated in both, and that was cool to see because I'd heard of Jushin for a long, long time, going back to must have been late 90s by the time I found out about him on the internet and stuff. Saw a few of his clips on YouTube, and they paid tribute to him. He went out on his back, as you should. So yeah, the first night there was 7 matches of that, and I was a bit like, ooh, what's this all about? But then we got to John Moxley. He took on Lance Archer in a Texas death match, which was no pinfall, no DQ, victory by 10 count, KO or submission. And I thought, here we go, John Moxley, this would be a great match. It was all right. It was 15 minutes long or so. I enjoyed it, but I was a bit let down. I was a bit like, that's not really... That felt like the John Moxley v Kenny Omega match they did at Full Gear, which was a hardcore match, basically. It went on for 40 minutes, though. At least this one was a quarter of the time. And I just wasn't that impressed with it, to be quite honest. Don't know whether I'm going off hardcore wrestling or what, but it was what it was. It wasn't terrible, but I was expecting it to be a blow-away match, and it wasn't. Quick note, they need to have Kenny Omega versus John Moxley in a wrestling match. Proper one on AEW soon. Not soon, at some point. That has to happen, ideally for the belt. 2 baby faces, bang! Rock v Austin. Anyway, then we had Takahashi versus Will Ospreay. Now, I'm obviously backing Will because he's from these shores. He's from the UK. It's for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. And it's, in terms of like modern wrestling, which is acrobatic, high-flying, fast-paced, this might have been one of the best matches of those I've ever seen. It was fantastic. Will Ospreay is phenomenal. He's such a talent, and obviously Takahashi is great as well. I didn't know much about him, but he had broken his neck a while back, and this was his first proper singles match, and you would not have known. You would not have known. A quick point, actually. The commentary team, I don't know if they're aware that people that watch these aren't always watching every single bit of content for New Japan Pro Wrestling, but they do a great... Kevin Kelly and the other guys, who I can't remember, shame on me, but there you go. They do a great job of catching you up using commentary, and they talk through the stories, the backstory, so you know what's going on. You never feel like you've missed something. But that was a great match. 25 minutes long, it was good. Then Naito beat Jay White after lots of interference from Guido, who's White's sort of manager. That was for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship. The winner of that would then go on to face the winner of the main event, which was Okada versus Ibushi. I knew I was going to butcher one of them, on night 2. So it's got like a mini tournament, and the winner of the tournament would be champ, because they'd have the heavyweight title and the Intercontinental title. First time in the history. That was a good match. That was a decent match. But we then saw Okada versus Ibushi, and that was incredible. Hands down, the best in-ring promotion is New Japan Pro Wrestling. Hands down. It's not even close. They are phenomenal. This match was 39 minutes long. It didn't feel like 39 minutes long. It breezed by. And I'd heard of Okada, so I've kind of wanted to back Okada. I wanted to see Okada win because I'd seen one of his matches before. Not really known anything about Ibushi, but I now have a much better idea of who Ibushi is, and also I became a fan of Ibushi. He's not ever won the heavyweight title, so this year I'm going to kind of like strap my rocket to... Well, that sounds a bit weird. I'm going to be backing Ibushi to win the belt at some point. So that's going to be my little... That's going to be my investment. We was talking about getting invested in people. Ibushi's my man at the moment, so I'm well up for seeing that. And I was so impressed with that match, though. That was a fantastic singles match. It's not for everyone, this style, because it's slow, it smoulders, it builds, but you could turn off the commentary and understand the story they're telling. Really, you can, just because Okada and Ibushi's facial expressions were so on point, and it was an amazing match, honestly. It was fantastic, and I do probably prefer the American style of wrestling, but this runs it close. When they put matches on like this, you kind of think, there you go. But fantastic match. But that left me with a little bit of a pickle, because the second night you kind of had these one fantastic top draw match and then 2 great matches and 1 good match, and they couldn't, in my view, they didn't live up to that first night. So night 2 was still good. They had less tag team matches, only 3 this time, which was good to see, and the rest were singles matches, which is where they are good. Zack Sabre Jr. beat his Sanada, and that was a good match. He's a great technical wrestler, Zack Sabre Jr. Again, British guy, so gonna be interested to see what he does. He plays a real annoying fucking heel, which is good. So he's one to watch out for. Jon Moxley beat Juice Robinson for the United States title. That was again an okay match. Like Moxley, I was a bit disappointed with him a little bit, but there you go. Then we had Goto, who defeated Kenta for the openweight, or the never openweight championship. That was a decent match. Jay White then took on Ibushi, because there's like a third place, I guess, playoff there, and he beat Ibushi. So what they've done, they've really run Ibushi into the ground here. And on what I can see them doing is this will be one of the long-term stories, that Ibushi's lost twice at the Tokyo Dome. The only person probably to do that. I think he must be. Other than Liger, actually, he lost twice but in singles competition we're talking about, and then it's going to be building him up to the point where he overcomes this, this disaster night, the biggest night of his 2 nights of his career, and he failed on both occasions. And he didn't win clean, Jay White. Jay White had so much interference from Guido that it was a joke. It felt like an American match a little bit, but. Yeah, now that's put me again. I'm like, right, Ibushi's at the bottom, as low as he can be. I am interested in where he goes, and that's the guy I'm going to be looking out for. Then Chris Jericho defeats Tanahashi via submission, and there was a stipulation there that if Tanahashi had won, he would receive a match for Jericho's AEW World Championship. And at that point, I kind of thought, well, we know Jericho's surely going to win unless New Japan and AEW have patched things up and having a working relationship. I mean, I think they're on better terms, but there's still a long, long way to go before talent exchanges properly and belts and things like that start getting defended. But that was a good match. Jericho still can go. He bullies people. He's a bit of a brawler, and he does what he needs to do. He can still springboard and do line salts, and it's good to see him win by the walls of Jericho, which we don't often see. Then we had Naito take on Okada for to be the double champion. Naito won it, and that was a huge deal. It's called the Double Gold Dash match. That was a huge deal for people because Naito had been, he'd been champion before, but he'd not won at the Tokyo Dome, had the big win at the Tokyo Dome, and then he finally overcame that. So even though I have not been watching it up until these 2 nights, I still understood that going into the match, which to me says they do a good job on commentary of catching me up. And yeah, Okada was still brilliant. He's still probably one of the best in that entire continent. He's fantastic. But yeah, so what that's done to me is that's now twigged my interest into what New Japan Pro Wrestling are going to be doing. So I don't know what I'm going to do about this because I want to watch all the main events they put on. So I have not watched New Year's Dash, which is the match that's after Wrestle Kingdom, the very next day. So it's almost like that Raw that's after WrestleMania. Everyone's like, you've got to watch it. The reason I haven't watched it yet, I've watched about half of it, is because I looked at the card and they were all tag matches from what I could see. And, I just said to you just then that I really wasn't that impressed with the tag matches and the 4 8-mans and all that stuff. So if it's that all night, I will watch it because I know there'll be stuff that happens story-wise. But, great. So I'm going to try and get involved with this. I don't know what I'm going to watch, what I'm not going to watch. I'm going to do my best to keep in tune and watch, obviously like things like the G1 and when Dominion goes on, and I'm going to watch it and we'll see if I get back to actually podcasting about it and where we find it. But yeah, really impressed with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Again, like NWA, it's completely different. You've not got people competing for the same space, and that will turn people off, no doubt. But it'll also build you a loyal fan base because you'll have people that love that style. And rightly so, because the in-ring stuff, hands down, is the best in the world. And keeping in mind, they lost a hell of a lot of people in the last 12 months. They lost Cody, they lost Omega, they lost Hangman Page, they lost the Young Bucks. Like, shitload of people who exited the promotion, and they've still got... I don't think they've quite got the depth to do 2 nights when half a card's tag matches. Don't do that, but they can still put on... I think it's going to be a struggle to beat that Okada v Ibushi match this year. I know it was only on January 4th it aired, but fuck me, that was so good, that match. It really was. Anyway, enough babbling. I'm going to call to a close the first edition of WrestleCast here at Dimp Digital. I hope you enjoyed it. If you are watching this and if you're listening to this and you can see the artwork on the actual thumbnail for this episode, you may notice that there's some good art on there. That's because there's a chap called Hal Haney. Don't know. Sorry, Hal. But he does art, like wrestling, hand drawn art. He's fucking great here, honestly. And I asked him, can I use some of your art when I do our thumbnails, and he said, yeah, of course, just give us a shout out. So this is a shout out for Hal. You can find him at Hal Haney Art. He's got an Etsy shop, so you can check that out. All his links are in his profile. Go and follow him on Twitter or on Instagram, whatever you prefer, and you'll be treated to some great drawings, and you may see some of those in our thumbnails for either WrestleCast or WrestleCast Retro, which will be coming very shortly. So quick shout out to Hal. Great stuff from him. Anyway, that's it. I won't babble anymore. Thanks very much for your time, and ta-da.
I know what you're thinking. I'm not a real athlete.
I'm just a wrestler.
I'm 6'10", 328 pounds.
I won boxing's Golden Gloves 3 years in a row.
I was a national champion at the University of Miami.
My jersey was retired at Florida State.
I was the ultimate fighting champion.
When you step through those ropes, bad things do happen. Had over 200 stitches.
I've suffered a dozen concussions.
I've broken bones.
I've separated shoulders.
Damn near broke my neck.
Blown out knees.
But I still got up. This is who I am.
This is what I do. I'm not really an athlete.
This isn't real.
Dry lacing my boots.